What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Court Storm College Hoops Talk podcast, brought to you right here on the Court Storm Media Network. My name is Kanaye, and I'm here with my co-host Josh. And today we're going to be bringing you guys some of our takeaways from some of the games that have been played so far to start off the college basketball season. We had a really good opening night with both Arizona taking down the defending national champion Florida Gators. I put out a recap for that video, so please check it out if you haven't already. Also put out a recap for the second biggest game of the night being between BYU and Villanova. BYU took home the win. So definitely check out both of those recap videos if you have not. And on top of that, we're also just going to preview some of the games we're looking forward to, as well as doing a buy or sell regarding some of our favorite players and programs around the country, just where we view their stock right now and if we're looking to go in on them or kind of push back and sell on their stock for the rest of the season. But before we get into all of that today, please engage with the videos you see on this channel in any way you can, whether it's liking, subscribing, or just telling other people about the Court Storm. It goes a long way with driving YouTube's algorithm, getting a larger audience to watch our videos. So let's get right into it. Josh, I'll ask you first. Was there a particular game or maybe a performance from a certain player that really caught your eye in the opening days of the college basketball season?
I definitely have a few. Obviously, you had your Arizona and BYU videos out, so I'm not going to touch upon those players. Shout out Koa Pete. That 30-point beginning to his season is everything Arizona wanted. But beyond that, the freshman showed out and, as expected, did everything we wanted to see. Cam Boozer had his pretty interesting but pretty solid game against Texas. That ended up being a 15-point rout for him at the end of the day. I saw some pretty good things off of Darren Peterson, who obviously looked pretty good going in.
Yeah.
Nate Ahmed did pretty well for his start. And I know Michael Brown Jr. didn't have the start people were expecting. I think he had 11 points, if I'm not wrong. He showed some growth, and I do feel like this Louisville team, despite maybe not showing off the best in comparison to other teams, is in a pretty good location to get things going. Top of that, Keaton Wagler from Illinois had, I think, 18, which was the big talking point, I think, for this surprisingly not just good, but great Illinois team that could be deeper than we originally thought. And I'm trying to think if there's any other freshman rookies. Fizz DeRitter, the international prospect out of Virginia, 20, if I'm not wrong, as well. I think Virginia's going to look pretty solid behind him. So yeah, a lot of rookies and international prospects that started their first time in college basketball and a pretty good start, if you're going to ask me.
Yeah, there was a lot of great freshman performances, on opening night. Immediately, I think you still got to show a lot of love to the freshman pairing at Arkansas between Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff.
That's a good one, eh?
Continued to play really, really well. Did so on opening night against Southern U. Additionally, Kai and Anthony, it was really nice to see him come off the bench for an injured J.J. Starling in Syracuse's first game, had 15 points, shot the ball pretty efficiently. Really excited to see how he progresses as the season goes on. Additionally, I thought Sean Abayev at Cincinnati also continues to prove why he could end up being a lottery pick this year. But overall, I just think the freshmen really do prove to show how deep of a class it is this year and why I really do believe it has a chance to be one of, if not the best freshman classes we've ever seen in college basketball. But in terms of just some of my other big takeaways from just solid performances from other programs around the country, St. John's, I thought, had a really great showing against Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac was without Amari Monroe in that game, which I actually didn't know till right before tip-off time. So that's, of course, unfortunate for that program. But I got to say, I think the best thing I was able to take away from that St. John's game was Ian Jackson shooting 100% from the floor, also getting the start where you might have thought that Ian Jackson was going to be in the doghouse. I still think that's on the table, depending on his level of play, his level of effort on the defensive end of the basketball. But I definitely think seeing Ian Jackson get going early on is definitely a good sign for the Johnnies. Additionally, Michigan just shot the lights out. I think they had, 60-something points in the first half alone. Trey McKinney looked really, really good. That freshman is going to play a big role for them off the bench this year in Ann Arbor. And outside of that, I think Gonzaga had a really good showing. Ty and Grant Foster looked really good. UCLA, not a great showing whatsoever. Mick Cronin had some strong words per usual in his post-game press conference. They barely squeaked it out against Eastern Washington. And then the games in the following day on Tuesday. Purdue looked really good. Fletcher Loyer lit it up, put in his case for being the best shooter in the country. Let me tell you, Fletcher Loyer on opening night never disappoints. Kentucky looked really good. Duke against Texas. I definitely think Texas deserves a lot of credit. They're solid this year under Coach Miller, and I think they're going to be a tough team in the SEC. Let me tell you, Duke's defense really, I think, stole the show, and Isaiah Evans in the first half was stellar. And I guess just one more big player performance that really stuck out to me is Christian Anderson for
Good
Texas.
one. Yeah.
25 points and 8 assists in the first half alone. Finished with, I want to say 34 and 11.
31. But
31. Nonetheless, it's clear he's made the freshman sophomore leap, and I'm going to be really, really excited to see how he plays the rest of the year for the Red Raiders. I mean, Michigan and Texas Tech, those are two teams that me and Josh criticized a lot over the offseason. We're not really sure as to what the ceilings are right now. I don't want to be a victim of buying into the hype and not sticking with my gut here, but they're definitely making it hard to continue to view their ceiling as lower than what it might end up being.
yeah, no, I think I'm pretty much going to say right now that Michigan is a good team. Not that I wasn't saying that beforehand, but I never really feel like Michigan was the team that people were hyping them up to. I'm starting to really believe that they dropped 123 points. I think that's the most that any team has dropped so far in any competition.
Yeah.
So you got to give them credit. But also Illinois dropped 113. So I'm loving how Illinois is turning out. Texas Tech, yeah, looked great. I like the sophomore growth that we're seeing from obviously Anderson, but also Isaiah Evans. He looked
Yeah.
magnificent. And then the transfers, a lot of the transfers looked great. Obviously, Yaks looked pretty good. Darren Williams had his show. I liked seeing a lot of just general play from the Purdue transfers and Oscar Clough and Liam Murphy. They had a pretty nice start to their careers in West Lafayette. The Indiana guys were pretty solid as well. The Indiana looks like a pretty
Yeah. Tucker
decent
was good
team.
last.
Yeah, Tucker had a good game, which is something you want to see. You want him to stay healthy. You want him to stay a big part of their rotation that will keep them going. John Blackwell, I know he stayed, but the players around him really supported him. He had, I think, 30 points. So
Yeah.
very underrated scoring game. And then outside of that, the mid majors looked really nice. I mean,
Yeah.
we can talk about Hawaii Pacific all day long if we really cared enough. But
Yeah, I mean, hey, let me tell you, I know it doesn't officially count towards their resume, but in the voters' eyes, it should because
yeah,
losing to a Group 2 school,
I won't. I don't care if Boise State wins the Mountain. Like unless Boise State literally has to win the Mountain West tournament to make them in my opinion. I just can't. I can't put that team in. And I think this might be Leon Rice's last season as coach in Boise. The team has just really fallen off in recent years. It's hard to get over the losses you've had, but I'm not crazy about where this team is heading. I think I could say the same thing with a team like TCU, even Auburn. Oh, I think Beckman Cookman is that mid major team to talk about for the next few months. This is a 15 seed that can upset a 2 seed. I think I will say that again and again every time people forget about them. That is my like favorite mid major going into the year. And honestly, put UT Martin in that category. Upset win on the road against a pretty good UNLV squad. They're a team of 11 different countries, if I'm not wrong. It's like Illinois on steroids. Their team looks like a FIBA World Cup squad, and they play like it too. So this team had a high floor, incredibly low ceiling. It looks like the floor is pretty much being raised a lot right now because where this team could be in the OVC out of all conferences is super, super entertaining. But I really like just seeing a lot of these starts from just a myriad of teams, to be honest with you.
most definitely. I mean, a great start to the college basketball season. I really am so excited for what is to come because we got some really big games, which kind of segues us into our next segment regarding shouting out just some of the games we're really looking forward to in the coming days. Josh, I'll ask you first. Are there any games catching your eye?
You know, we have to say it, and we will be making it a big deal coming up to it. But book your calendar. Louisville, Kentucky. That is the game of the month. Honestly, including Players Era, that is the game of the month. You're having the two premier programs in Kentucky, and not just in Kentucky, but the two premier second-year coaches. Both had good first starts. Both probably going to have good second starts. They're walking into like their third game of the season with everything up and ready for grabs. And it's in Louisville. So home court advantage to the Cards. And I honestly, we'll have a prediction video later on in the week. But this is the game that I really feel like will change college basketball for the rest of the non-conference schedule. Because if Louisville wins this game, there are huge changing talking points both in the AC, but also in just the sport as a whole, because Kentucky is kind of the team to beat right now.
Yeah, I mean, let me say, I'm just so glad that this in-state rivalry between Kentucky and Louisville is back. It's been so long since this was a really, really true rivalry game. Last year, it was solid in both those respective programs' coaches' first year with their new school. But now they both reloaded. They both have top flight rosters in the sport right now, and I'm really excited. I think I at the very moment right now favor Kentucky in that game, just out of the showings we've seen so far out of both those schools. But nonetheless, it should be a good game. The KFC Young Center will be rocking, and that's definitely one I got circled on my calendar for next week. Looking ahead just to this weekend alone, we got Alabama St. John's, Arkansas Michigan State. Of course, as Josh mentioned, we will be putting preview videos out for some of these bigger games, so definitely be on the lookout for those to come. But those two games should be really good. Alabama St. John's, I fully expect to be a shootout too. High-powered offenses. I give St. John's the edge right now just because I think they're a better defensive team. You know how Nate Oates runs a system, 110% offense. Play defense when you want to. It's really up to the players. But yeah, that game should be good. Arkansas, Michigan State. I'm really excited for to see how the defense of Michigan State handles the high-powered offensive skill, talents that are that freshman class combined with his returnees. And I actually forgot tomorrow night on the day of this recording is Thursday, November 6th. So tomorrow night, Friday, we do have Kansas UNC. Very excited to see the freshman showdown between Caleb Wilson and Darren Peterson. Darren Peterson's looked like a stud, could be the number one pick in the draft. Caleb Wilson's had a really good start at UNC as well. So I think that game should be really good.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for those as well. Arkansas, Michigan, I do want to point on. That's a really good starting case for Coach Cal and his possible return to stardom with Arkansas. The team looks wonderful behind the two freshmen, and everybody else around them is really fitting in with this squad. I could definitely see Michigan State win this game as well, but I feel like Arkansas is pretty heavily in the driver's seat. I think beyond that, there are a lot of smaller good games to catch up on. Duke is going to Army. I think that's just a fun shout out game. It's a legacy game for Coach K. You gotta love to see that. Not expecting Army to do much, but it's nice to see Duke on the road. Maybe that's their first quote unquote tough environment because it's just not going to be in Cameron Indoor. Um, and then they obviously have talks about Virginia Tech and Providence. I think that's a good starting game for two teams that are very bubbly to start the season. So you want to see where they go. Same thing with Indiana and Marquette, two other bubble teams. I know Maryland and Georgetown is sometime later next week. That's also a fun game. That's reinvigorating an old rivalry between two schools in the DC area. So you gotta love to see that one. Anything else on the small side for games?
I mean, I think it's a fairly big game. Mississippi State, Iowa State. I can't remember if you mentioned that one. That one's being played in
Oh
Sioux
yeah,
Falls, which Josh told me just before we started recording today. That should be an interesting game. I favor Iowa State just because I think they're better all around. Mom Silovich was a guy who I forgot to mention in our big player performances to start the season. He had a really good game in Iowa State's opening night. But overall, I think we pretty much hit on a lot of the games. Got Circle coming up. So now I think it's time to get on to another segment, a little more of a fun one, just free flowing. Throw out a team, throw out a player, throw out a coach, buy or sell, how we view their stock going throughout the rest of the year. I'll start off and ask Josh, Florida.
oh, I love this one. This is such a good start, and I'm still gonna buy. Maybe if you told me this last week, I would have bought a lot more. I'm gonna buy, but not a crazy amount, just because I'm not necessarily hyped anymore.
Yeah.
That said, this team still looks great. Tommy Howe is everything we want from him. He's having the lead that he needs to have. But Condon still makes me question why he was named a first team All American. I question the guard play between Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee. They had one good play. I think Boogie Flan tossed into the back, and Xavier caught that really well, made a great shot opportunity off that, made it as well. But outside of that, there's no dynamic guard play that we were kind of promised. It is obviously the first game, and this is probably the hardest first game that any team has had. Let's be honest with you here. But
Yeah.
with that said, I'm not fully sold, and I wasn't fully sold in Florida to start the year. I felt like 3 was respectable, but maybe not the best location for them. Obviously, they're probably going to be closer to the bottom of the top 10 coming into next week's AP poll. But overall, not an atrocious start to the year because they kept the game good for most of the time being. Bye, like I said before, but just not a lot.
Yeah. A lot of these points I hit on in my recap of the Florida Arizona. I think I talked more on Florida's end than I did Arizona, just because Arizona, the main storyline was Koa Pete and Jaden Bradley. Those guys just balled. I'm not ready to sell on Florida yet. I still think they're a good enough team. I do think that preseason ranking coming in at third was kind of in a way how the position UConn was in last year, where they're getting the national championship benefit of the doubt. Nonetheless, I do think this Florida roster is a lot better than UConn's roster last season, and I kind of want to ask as like a mini buy sell question Xavier Lee, because I did throw out in my Florida Arizona recap that from what I saw at Xavier Lee, that second half was kind of rough. He didn't shoot the ball great overall. But the start he got off to and just what he did playmaking overall, I want to say I buy his stock in being able to be a productive player at the Power 5 level. And I'm curious to hear your opinion on this.
I am tempted to buy him. If I do, it's going to be even less than Florida. I kind of would. I don't, but I want to sell him. I honestly would hold stock where I already am at right now, which is that Xavier Lee will be a good player, but more or less a good six man than a true starter. I personally don't see him on the level that I could expect from other players, and apparently they have a lot of other good guys, especially their freshmen and Urban Klavzar, that really could fill the same role that Xavier Lee is. And honestly, Urban Klavzar played better. Urban Klavzar was not really the type of person that I was expecting to get a lot of minutes or get a lot of points in any scenario. And here he was, honestly outballing a lot of the other guards on both teams. So I don't want to sell and I don't want to buy necessarily. I'm leaning more towards buy if you're going to force me to choose one thing, but I'm holding on Xavier Lee. He is the big question for this Florida team, and I don't really want to change much on that. But I think I'm going to toss a little fun one as well. Buy or sell Texas Tech.
Man, this one's tough. This one's tough. Like I mentioned earlier, both me and Josh haven't really been on the side of the Red Raiders this entire offseason leading up to the season. We both did believe in the Christian Anderson freshman sophomore leap, but is his level of play that we saw on opening night sustainable over the course of the entire season? I do think it is. Obviously, not to that extent. We're dropping 25 and 8 in the first half, but I think he's going to be a really good player. I'm really curious to see how Lawan Watts, I honestly forget off the top of my head how well he played in that game for T-Tech. But you know what you have with JT Top, and Christian Anderson looks really good. Look, you got guys like Donovan Atwell, Lawan Watts from the transfer portal who should play big roles on his team. I don't know if I buy the level of shooting that this team has. For example, Michigan, a big question both me and Josh had was where was the shooting going to come from? And we've seen in spurts from different guys on that Michigan roster to the point where you know that, okay, if they're on, they're on. But Texas Tech, relying solely on Christian Anderson being able to play make from behind the 3 point line, creating his own shot, consistently hit the step back threes he was hitting the other night. I just don't know if you're in a good position as a program if you're solely reliant on an underclassman guard to hit those shots time and time again and be that closer. I think he's capable of it, but I'm just not fully sure on it. I wouldn't sell. I I might sell, honestly. I'm still not fully there on Texas Tech.
Not there either. Personally, I would still sell, but not as much as last month. Heck, even
Yeah.
last week. I think the Christian Anderson blow up is bigger and better than I ever could have imagined. I do want to see them actually play a real opponent. I do have to wait quite a bit of time for that when they don't really play anything crazy until the end of the month. But as it stands right now, this team is looking almost as advertised. I wouldn't put them in the national championship conversation a lot of other people are doing right now, but this team does have that Final Four ceiling that most people can agree upon. If they really prove it to me later on this month, I will raise it to a national championship ceiling. But I just don't see it right now.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I really think you hit on all the points there. I'm just not there on Texas Tech. They just haven't completely flipped my opinion the way Michigan has from what we saw out of their preseason games and they're showing on opening night. Next one I'll throw out, I guess this is kind of double faceted, throw out a team with the coach, UCLA and Mick Cronin.
So I'm going to be real with you. I think it's about the same sell as it was last week and last month. I'm not crazy about Mick Cronin. I never really was. And I didn't like the starting performance to them. Donovan Dent didn't really seem to feel comfortable in this position, which is the worst possible thing to happen. I'm going to be so real with you. This team doesn't really look like that top 2, top 3 team that was projected to be competing for the Big Ten title. Donovan Dent is like the guy who could be player of the year. I know he's more or less outside the conversation, but he's still like outside looking in. There's obviously a lot of room to change it around. There's so much time, but I'm just not crazy about this team, and I never really was. I'm gonna be. They just needed more, and they
Yeah,
didn't get that.
I actually thought Donovan Dent played really well on opening night. He had 21 and 8 or 9. I forget off the top of my head, but you know what he is as a playmaker. He's a pro with the basketball in transition. I fully believe he is an NBA player, and he's as advertised. I'm fully certain he'll have a really good year, and he'll probably have a chance to end up on an all potentially as a all Big Ten, All American selection at the end of the season. Of course, we'll see what happens. But I just think what really stuck out to me was how poor the late game execution was from UCLA, letting guys, score really softly in transition when you were up 10 at one point, and then kind of I forget who it was they played again off the top of my head. But again, to let them get back in that game in a way, it just definitely kind of stuck out. And it was definitely Eastern Washington, my mistake. Eastern Washington, to let Eastern Washington get back in it late. And then you have Sky Clark taking threes with 13 plus seconds left in the shot clock when you should just be bleeding as much clock as you can. Get out there with the win and get ready for the next game. And you're making it interesting when you shouldn't be. That was definitely poor late clock management in my eyes. And Mick Cronin, of course, like I mentioned earlier, had that statement of just the arrogance, lack of preparedness that his team had. And let me say, I would like to see him blame a little bit less on his players the way he kind of did last year. We actually caught a lot of flack on this channel for saying Mick Cronin lost the locker room in a way last season, and that it led to a win streak, which it didn't last year. It did not lead to a win streak. And I think it's fair. He had a lot of guys transfer out of the program, but he did a good job turning the roster around. But I think there's time where you need to start taking some you need to start accounting for some of your mishaps as a team, as a coach yourself. So I would like to see Mick Cronin do that a little bit more. He's a great coach nonetheless. I forget how many wins, 500 plus maybe at just, he's in his 50s, I know. Great coach. I expect UCLA to be fine, but definitely a little bit of a head scratcher blaming your team this early in the season.
I'll throw another one on the West Coast. Buy or sell Oregon.
Oregon. I'm buying Oregon. For the longest time, I've been a big Oregon fan. I think you need to remember that they're without Jackson Shelstead right now, but they still have Nate Biddle, a guy who I think can contend to be on an All-American team. I think he's one of the best centers in the country. Wei Lee, who Josh actually made me aware of just leading up to the season, coming over from where he played professionally in China, I believe it is.
Yeah, the CBA.
The CBA, yeah. And listen, I like his game a lot. I think he's definitely going to be important for them in the games that they are without Jackson Shelstead. But when Jackson gets back, Oregon should be really good. They're one of the few West Coast teams that I actually, in a way, kind of trust more so than others. I always have a tough time trusting some of those teams further out west, just because the furthest west teams won a natty since I forget the year. Maybe it was in the 90s.
70s, yeah. Oh, Arizona was in the 90s, yeah.
Arizona in the 90s, but since then, the furthest west a team that's won a natty has been Baylor in 2021. I definitely think that I wouldn't say they're Final Four good, but I think they should contend pretty well in the Big Ten, and I could see them going on a little bit of a run come March.
Okay, I have a complete opposite view. I think that their game against Hawaii was atrocious, and yes, Shelstead wasn't there. We're going to probably say that if Shelstead was, they win by 10 or 15. But even then, this team does not look dominant in the way that we originally thinking. And I mentioned this before in the offseason, and I think I will mention it again and again. This team does not have any depth. It's very, very starting five favored, and that kind of works for some teams, and it could totally work for Oregon. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just not really there on them. And I'm just not really the type of fan for Dana Altman. He is an all right coach, but he plays very statically at times. And he obviously can have runs where, like last year, they won Players Era. They were one of the best teams in the country non-conference, and then they lost 5 in a row, including a buzzer beater game to Minnesota out of all teams in the Big Ten. This team doesn't really feel too far from last year's, unfortunately, and I really feel like they fall to the exact same scrutiny. So I'm not going to fall for the bait, and I'm going to sell.
That's fair. I hear you out. I just really do think, like you mentioned, they're not deep. We talked about this off season, but I'm really just in a position where I feel that Jackson Chelsea coming back solves a lot of their problems. If they got to go 7 deep and no one out and no further than that, I think that's what you got to do. Jackson Chelsea, Nate Biddle are good enough in my eyes. Yes, Danny Altman is not the greatest X's and O's guy, but I just think the talent between those two players and the fact that you're able to retain them from last year to this year is really just impressive work by the coaching staff to keep those two guys around. And I think they're prime time players, and I think they're both pros as well. And I think they're both good enough to take Oregon where they want to go. So for right now, I'm when I said buy, it's not like a buy more stock in a way. I just wouldn't sell it. For the time, I'm holding on to it because I think Jackson Shellstead will give pretty solid return on an investment there.
Definitely. I think it's your turn next.
My turn. All right, let me ask you. This, in a way, is also another coach program, maybe more so on the program overall. I want to ask you about Arkansas because right now, I think they can make a Final Four.
I think they can win a natty. I've said that for a bit now, and I'm going to keep it going. Cal is definitely turning back the clock in a way that I didn't really expect, and I didn't really think he could do. I mean, it is one of the greatest coaches in the sport, but he had fallen off in the past few years, and I think it felt like Arkansas was going to be this death grave for him, but not anymore. Cal is playing the classic Cal way, getting the freshmen to do all the work, but also surrounding them with a good amount of transfers. It's definitely a very different style of play than usual. Keeping guys like Nick Pringle, Trevon Brazil, DJ Wagner, just as older, better worked players to work around the young freshman duo, I guess, is really going to be the saving grace of this team. I'm buying quite a bit in this team, and I already bought a lot over the offseason. I will continue to buy until they convince me otherwise. I really feel like they could really trounce Michigan State this weekend, and I really wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I felt this good about a Coach Cal coached program. I mean,
Yeah,
this is literally, this roster that he's put together is legitimately Coach Cal's prime Kentucky bread and butter. It's like he's turning back the clock to those days. You got two freshmen, just star freshmen who are running the show between Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff. You have really great role players between guys like Travion Brazil, Isaiah Sealy, Nick Pringle, you mentioned, Billy Richmond, DJ Wagner. Those guys, I mean, Carter Knox, who I don't think played against Southern U. I forget off the top of my head, but they, I think they really, in a way, kind of have the full package. And it's this team. If you were to put it in the true one and done era, I mean, it's you wouldn't even bat an eye. They fit that era, that style of play that Coach Cal became so accustomed to so well. And I legitimately think they like you said, I think they definitely have to be national championship contention this year. I'm really in on Arkansas as opposed to kind of where I was over the offseason, just because I think Cal has kind of fallen off X's and O's wise. And granted, I don't think he ever was the best schematics coach. He's just the greatest recruiter probably to ever do it. But overall, I think Cal and Arkansas are in a really good spot right now, and I'm buying a lot of stock in the Razorbacks.
I can believe that. I'll give you one as well. This is kind of a fun one. This is not a team nor program, no conference. This is a conference. Would you buy or sell on the
A10. I'm buying on the A10 because of ECU.
Yeah, I would buy the A10 for all the teams. They were great to start the year.
I forget the kid's name, Darkovich.
Yes, from VCU. Yeah, Lazar. I think it's Lazar Dokovic almost because it's the same last name as. Yeah, he stunned. I did not hear about his name beforehand. I personally didn't even know too much about what new coach Phil Martelli was bringing over. But yeah, VCU looks great. But you can keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like that performance alone was really special. I think they got a great all around team. They have Brandon Jennings. I forget who else off the top of my head. Tracy, I forget your first name. I'm sorry if you are watching. They also got former Husky Ma Noel. I didn't get the chance to see if he actually played all too much in VCU's first game, but I'm really, really high on this VCU program. But I'm buying the A10. I'm a big believer in VCU for sure. I think Dayton, I don't think they'll be as good as past years, but you can never count out Dayton. And St. Louis too. I think
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar showed off. That was great.
St. Louis has I think a really good chance to be be good this year as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like this is the ace. This is probably one of the best A10s. And honestly, ECU is probably getting an 11 seed, maybe a 10 if they win the conference. But I honestly think there are two A10 teams that are making the tournament this year. I know there's a lot of rumors about if this A10 is good enough to do what hasn't been done in quite some time. Honestly, the way I'm looking at it right now, St. Louis looks great. Dayton looks pretty good. ECU's having a great bounce back despite losing everything in their coach. Loyal Chicago had a buzzer beater shot to really start through the season. What could be a magical season in the death of the late Sister Jean. I think beyond those three, George Washington looked great. They're projected to win the A10 actually. But as a whole conference, the A10 looks magnificent. And I don't think they missed out on any opportunities to start the year. And I don't think it's going to really level down as the non-conference play continues.
Yeah, I mean, I am all in on the A10 this year. I think they probably have a chance to be. It's tough between Mountain West and A10, which mid major I think will
Yeah,
be
and
better.
for the record, I am selling on the Mountain West. They're just not looking like the conference that they were in the past, and this year is probably the worst of the past five, to say the least.
Yeah. Now, I guess just one more that I'll throw out is BYU. I'm curious to hear about what you thought about their opening night game against Villanova. Obviously, they won, which is probably must-win game, as I talked about in my recap episode. Just because they're out of conference slate really isn't all too strong. Their best game is against UConn and coming up next Saturday in Boston, which is the homecoming for AJ DeBance. A lot of NBA scouts will be in the building. Richie Saunders, Rob Wright did not shoot the ball great for BYU. Keba Keita was the unsung hero in that game for me. Just the job he did defensively and what he did, and just being able to finish around the rim. But I think the one knock that everyone who covers college basketball, including us too, had for BYU was their defensive abilities. And I'm seeing the way they let Bryce Lindsey single-handedly get Villanova back in the game definitely was concerning. I'm going to ask you, buy or sell them defensively?
I kind of want to buy still. They did not look good against Villanova, which maybe that means Villanova is a better team than we think. But this is still a top two or three team in the Big 12. It's hard. I think it's buy and sell for me. This is one of the few teams I'd actually do both ways on. I'm buying and just Debansa being that force for them. Like he looks like he is the player that will be running this team. I know there are kind of questions on if he's going to be more of just a additional piece rather than the main piece. He is the main piece for this team. And I think that game showed it. But beyond that, yeah, Saunders didn't do as well as you would have liked. But there is still a lot of growth. Dawson Baker had moments. Keba Kieta looked wonderful. I think so many BYU fans are so excited to see this guy really get the growth he deserved. And not a lot of talk in the preseason for a guy like him. I think he definitely could be one of the top five centers in the Big 12. He probably already is that, but I will probably sell them being a national contender. I really feel like this game kind of shows their weaknesses, which I feel like you just can't have that even at the start of the year if you want to win the national championship. This is still a great team. This is probably the best BYU team of all time. Maybe this breaks the curse of them not making a Final Four ever, but I don't really see the ceiling being a national championship like a lot of the people are saying. And I don't even know if I want to put Javance as my number one pick. I really feel like Peterson's kind of been that guy as of recent.
Listen, it's early. As always, you need to take these opening night games with a grain of salt. But let's just be honest. I think Villanova will be solid this year. But really, it took Bryce Lindsey just shooting the lights out from beyond the arc to get Villanova in this game. And it's really just one player that BYU had to really focus on stopping. Caden Lewis was not really anything to write home about in his debut. Devin Askew was a non-factor. I just think that I'm not sure I'm comfortable selling just yet because I think BYU has the length to be a good an average at worst defensive team. I also think they have decent individual defenders between Kennard Davis, Keba Keita. But the defense you're getting out of your backcourt between Saunders and Rob Wright kind of concerns me a little bit. Just I could see teams that really go in on making it an issue of getting into the paint area and attacking you off dribble drives could cause some problems for BYU defensively. I think DeBansa actually defended pretty well at high level. That was the main takeaway for me overall for BYU. Seeing him being able to, one, he had a good scoring night, but being able to affect the game in other ways, the way Cooper Flagg did last year, play make for his teammates, get on the glass. defend. But I definitely do have question marks surrounding their defensive ceiling. I don't think they'll ever be a top 25 Ken Palm offense this year, which would take them out of national championship contention, as every national champion has been in both the top 25 offensively and defensively on Ken Palm. So I think right now it's like a half sell for me because I think they'll be better than what they showed on opening night, but I just don't think they'll ever reach the ceiling of being a top 25 offense. Defense on Ken.
Yeah, no, I definitely can get behind that mentality. And listen, there's nothing bad about the way they started necessarily. I am, as I mentioned before, a little bit worried, and I don't see the ceiling being the way that a lot of people are seeing it right now. Like we always say, it's where you start, and they have so much time to change it around. Like you said before, they only have UConn. If they can beat UConn, maybe I change my mind. But
Yeah,
I'm not convinced about that one in the slightest because that's not even anywhere close to neutral territory for BYU. That's
right.
going to be a massive test for any team involved. But I think that pretty much sums up our feelings on BYU.
Yeah, and did you have one more
Oh
hot
yeah,
take
yeah. I
or
think
five star?
a good one is. I'll throw it to a coach. How do you personally feel right now about Hubert Davis?
Hubert Davis, I'm unsure of. I think a lot of it's tough to throw out the word job security considering he just signed that big 5 year extension. I forget the money value of that contract overall, but I think a lot of Hubert Davis's appeal in the eyes of both UNC fans and the program overall, the athletic director, really rides on the season. This season, one, and the performance of Caleb Wilson. I think Caleb Wilson really has a chance to, in a way, save Hubert Davis's job, which, again, I can't confidently say Hubert Davis is on the hot seat because he got that extension. But again, it's really going to come down to how this year's team performs. I'm not a Hubert Davis. I'm not sold on Hubert Davis as a coach. I think that was one really magical run he had to the Final Four, was able to bring back almost all the main guys from that roster. Lost Brady Manick, who I think a lot of people don't give enough credit for during their Final Four run, but obviously missed the tournament as preseason number one. Last year, completely underachieved expectations, missed on guys in the transfer portal, didn't address the need of filling the void of Armando Bacot after he graduated. And this year, I like the players they brought in. Henry Vasar. I forget who else off the top of my head they plucked out of the portal, but getting some Trimble back was definitely important as well. But to hear that they spent $14 million on that roster,
Yeah,
I like the players. I don't think they're worth 14 million. And UNC got to make the tournament at large this year instead of having to get in out of the first four like they did last year. So I like Caleb Wilson a lot. I think he's going to have a stellar year in his freshman campaign in the ACC, but I'm just not there on UNC nor Hubert Davis.
yeah. I'm pretty much not giving up on Hubert Davis. I don't even have much stock in him anyway to sell, so I might as well buy while I'm at it because I think a lot of people have higher stock in him. UNC didn't look bad, like I said before. Caleb Wilson looked pretty good. The rest of the team around him was decent. Not gonna say a lot just because it is your first game of the year, and there's still so much to consider, especially when they're playing Kansas, which that's a great game for them. If you
Yeah.
can beat a honestly a rising Kansas squad, I think you deserve to get talk you need. And for Hubert Davis himself, you need this. I think this could be Hubert Davis' last season in UNC. I'm being so honest with you. If UNC does not make the Sweet 16, he's out. Actually, if they don't even make the tournament, he's out. But I think if they push it to the Sweet 16, the bubble, or I guess the hot seat's still kind of there. He needs to get water on that seat. Simple enough. He needs to really leverage himself and leverage this contract and show to a very, very passionate fan base. Keep in mind, UNC is one of the most passionate fan bases of all time, that you can play the way you used to. I mean, Caleb Love is long gone, so that Final Four run is pretty much out of most minds, if you're going to ask me. And a lot of people just remember Hubert Davis from missing the tournament as the number one preseason team, doing horrible last year, wasting the potential of a one seed in 2024. Like, the team is bad, good, bad, good, bad, good. So maybe this is the year they actually are good, and that changes a lot of people's perception on Davis again. But I'm not falling for the lies. I never really have. Hubert Davis is just not a good coach. and
Just seeing
especially
how
not good for UNC.
just to add one more point, I like everything you had to say. I won't push back on really any of that. But one thing that's definitely alarming is seeing how players have performed once leaving UNC. I literally just had his name on the K Tyson, who was there last year, when they're hyped up transfers going to last season. He's in Minnesota. He's balling right now. Listen, I
Yeah,
understand it's Minnesota. They haven't played any great schools yet, but he already has. I think he had a 30-point exhibition game, maybe followed it up with like another near 30-point game. I missed how Minnesota played, if they have yet. But overall, I mean, just seeing that and then seeing the words coming from Darian Williams about how Van Allen Lubin was completely misused by Hubert Davis to add some fire to that research triangle rivalry between Duke, UNC, and NC State. It's definitely alarming for Hubert Davis, just seeing one, K Tyson seem like he might be back to his Belmont form, and then Van Allen Lube, just the whole saga that's transpired with regarding Van Allen.
yeah. There is the big talk about if UNC can really prove the haters wrong, especially considering NC State exists on the other side of the aisle. I mean, I'm buying stock on NC State. I'm buying stock on Duke. If they're losing to the other Research Triangle teams, that's pack it up. That's pack it up and leave. I really can't say much more on him in general. This is his biggest season. Simple enough. If he can
Yeah.
do what he did 2 years back, what he did all those years back with Caleb Love, then maybe people are considering. Maybe I'll consider a different view on him. But I'm not.
Yeah, I'm definitely there with you. But I think that's going to take care of everything we had for you guys on this episode today. Like we talked about earlier, a lot of good games to come. Really solid start to this college basketball season. Super excited for the games in the coming days. But until the next episode, we'll see you all next time.